what I want to do today is just share with you 3 lessons, and they more or less going to come all together, one after the other at the end of the talk. So we'll build up a little bit to see where the lessons lie. But more important for me for the new year is these lessons come from a theme regarding, Israel's journey to the promised land. And I believe this theme is much needed for us until in the future now, until Jesus returns. And I'm calling it a kind of a mindset hack for 2025, out of this theme that I'm going to imply. I've already implied it since the new year. And I wanted to do this in the past, but never really got deliberate about it. But this year I want to be deliberate about this. So I'll explain to you later what that is all about. So if we look at Israel's journey in the wilderness, those pictures there give us some idea where they, on the left, when they come out of Egypt and they pass through the Red Sea, get to Mount Sinai, and the law is given to them and so on. So in Exodus 13:21, here's this kind of theme that you'll see that develops. It says, Yahweh went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them by the way, and by night in a pillar of fire, to give them light to go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. So we often read this and, okay, you in your mind, you'd like envisage, okay, you can see them going to their next stopover in the wilderness. We know there was about 42 of them. And then, God was going before them, and we know the way he did. But there was something Moses did, which I'll show you just now. You must probably know about it, but that's going to link up with all of this to get us to this kind of thing we might think of doing in a certain way to help us in our walk. So anyway, we know that when it says God went before them, it was the angel representing God that went before them in the spill of fire and the cloud. So in Exodus 14 with 14 verse 19 would be clearly explaining that to us, where it says, the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them, and the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them, and it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. It was a cloud of darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that one could came not near the other all the night. So really very encouraging to us that God, the same God that can be kind of threatening, I would say, to people who are ungodly and will deserve his punishment, is the God that is all loving and comforting to us, protecting us. A cloud represented two different things for whether you were on God's side or on the Egyptian side. And often we might want to remember this in the future, that we all happy that God is protecting us. He's our fortress. But it's interesting that the way he protects us is in ways we might not think. Like the one cloud that's actually protecting us is what is blinding other people on the other side. God has got obviously all the power in the world, but once we see how he does things, looking back, we kind of say, well, that was quite simple way to do it, and God having all the power, it was obviously very easy for him. Okay, now after Mount Sinai, I would like you, we just want to build on some structure here that you know very well. When Israel was camping in the wilderness, notice now how we know they camped three of the tribes in groups on each side, and in the middle, in the blue there, we have the Levites and the families of Moses, the way they camped around. So we don't want to get into too much detail, but what I want you to just remind you of is that in the middle we would have the tabernacle with a small yellow block there, the most holy of holies, and then the holy place, and then the outside perimeter with the laver, the altar, and things in there. But what is more significant for today's talk is the order in which these tribes would move out when they made a camp and then they were to move to the next place. I don't know if you ever really realize it, but I often think that for the Israelites in that phase of going through wilderness is a lot like mission work that we do. You start off in the morning and you go, but you're not quite sure where you're going to go and where you're going to be at the end of that day, where you're going to might not even know where you're going to sleep with some brothers and sisters in the next village or whatever, and how late and whatever. So something similar for Israel, they would move out in a specific order, and I can hear some mic. I don't know. Maybe it's my imagination. Let me just do this. So the specific order, we know that marching in the direction of the arrows, we have right in front would be Moses, Aaron, his sons with, they carried the ark. Then you have Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and after them would be Gershon and Merari with the tabernacle. Reuben, Simeon, and Gad, and behind them, and Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin would be the Kohath tribe with the holy things that went in the tabernacle. This is just another way of seeing that the ark on your left down here, and then you have these three tribes, each with their standard, with the faces of the four cherubim. We're not going into all of that detail. And you would find various representations of this. Here's another one. If we are doing the direction of the march going downwards, we have this idea of, you'll see after Zebulun, we have Levi with the clan, the Merarite clan, carrying the tabernacle tent. And then after Gad and that group there, you have Levi, the Kohathites, and they were carrying the furnishings. And then right in the front, obviously, down at the bottom here would be the ark. So Moses and the tribes go in front. Now we might think, okay, so why all this detail and what does it really mean for us? So in Psalm 80 verse 1, when the psalmist writes and is talking about the restoration, this is what he says in verse 1. He says, to the chief musician, a psalm of Asaph, give ear, O shepherd of Israel, you that lead Joseph like a flock, you that dwell between the cherubims, shine forth. Before Ephraim, Benjamin, and Manasseh, stir up your strength and come and save us. So this is a allusion to God that dwelled when the tabernacle was set and they camped. God dwelled there in the tabernacle amongst the cherubims on the ark. So the ark goes in front. But when the psalmist looks at that picture we saw before, he sees the strength of God is before Benjamin, Ephraim, and Manasseh, basically saying that when you look at the tribes as they march, God goes before them. The very ark is right in front, and then he's even in the midst of them. But all the time they know he's the one that is leading them and going before them. It's interesting if you go to Ezekiel 34 to 37. We're not going to do that today, but this theme of the shepherd that leads Israel comes out in those prophecies, where one of the very reasons Jesus will come and lead us out of our wilderness. He is leading us at the moment through the wilderness like Moses, and will take us to the promised land. One of the reasons God is so angry with Israel and gets them into that position where they will need Jesus is because the shepherds have neglected the flock, and the leaders are not working towards making Israel a godly country. All right. So here, when it says the God dwells between the cherubims, that's referring to the ark. And then here is the psalmist referring to the order of the marching in the wilderness. So we have a specific way in which they will camp and a specific way they will march out. So let me obviously just make it a bit more visual again. The ark is there, and the ark is really, when they camped, the ark was right before Benjamin, Manasseh, and Ephraim. So they were the ones that looked directly upon the ark, and when they marched, it was sorry, they looked directly upon the most holy. We know the ark was in there, and then the ark went right in front, and they would carry the furnishings. So definitely the psalmist is making allusion to this. So let's look then quickly at Ezekiel 37, and then I think I've built enough of a foundation to then show you why this means so much to me. So in Ezekiel 37, I'm going to read that for you. Notice here talking, and I want to show you that this is talking about the future when Jesus comes back and what he will do. David, my servant, shall be king over them, and they shall all have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgments, observe my statutes, and do them. Notice that Ezekiel 37:24 is talking about that not Israel before Jesus comes, the Israel that Jesus, after he came, gets them to be a godly nation, the Spirit of God blown into them again, and they are observing God's commandments. They are a holy nation. And they shall dwell in the land that I've given unto Jacob, my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt. They shall dwell therein, they, their children, and their children's children forever. My servant David shall be their prince forever. David, symbolic of the king, prototype of Jesus. So this is all prophesying about Jesus one day coming after Zechariah 14 and then making Israel safe again and a holy nation. Verse 26, moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them, and I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. My tabernacle also shall be with them. Yea, I will be their God, and they shall be my people. My There we go. So in verse 28, and the heathen shall know that I, Yahweh, do sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. So definitely a prototype, what we see in the wilderness, Moses leading the people, and when they camp, God is in the middle, Jesus leading us, and eventually when he comes, even in Israel, some type of that kind of worship will be established again. But God will definitely again be the center of attention for them in the future, to the glory of his name amongst the whole world. Right, so here comes we coming to a little bit of an extra detail here that is now going to be something that I'm going to really focus on this year. Notice in Numbers 10:33, they departed from the mountain of Yahweh 3 days' journey, and the ark of the covenant of Yahweh went before them in the 3 days' journey to search out a resting place for them. So, when you do mission work, you go out in the morning and you don't know actually that day maybe where you're going to sleep. Is there something provided for you? It was definitely the situation for me. In one of my trips to Zambia, there was a couple of days you did not even know where you're going to be that night. But it was always comforting to know that God will be there and there will be a place. And this is so beautiful here. It says, when the resting place for them, and the cloud of Yahweh was upon them by day when they went out of the camp. And it came to pass, when the ark set forward, Moses said, now this is where I got so much more from this whole theme. It's not just that they followed the ark. Every time that they packed up camp and they went, Moses said these words: Rise up, Yahweh, let your enemies be scattered, and let them that hate you flee before you. And then when they came to a place where they were going to camp, it says, when it rested, Moses again said these certain words: Return, O Yahweh, unto the many thousands of Israel. So imagine now every morning when you and I wake up, we have this mindset, and when we go out, we sort of say to God, I believe and ask you, go ahead and find me a resting place so that tonight I can come back to my home, and whatever was out there, the challenges it's gonna bring the day, together with you, God, I will fight those. And I know that, well, I can come home and rest my head in peace and in, in a state of calmness. Um, or if I'm not going to get back home to sleep there tonight, you will by some way take care of me, that I will be provided a resting place. And also notice that when we say, God, go out and fight, help us to fight the battles for us and prepare places for us, we're also saying when he returns, he's not returning just to me as an individual. He's returning to me and my family. He's returning to all the faithful brothers and sisters all over the world every day, to come back and have fellowship with them. Right. You find something similar going on in Deuteronomy 1 verse 28. Where shall we go up? Notice in Deuteronomy 1, we had this idea of the 10 spies not being faithful, thinking God can help them and win their battles, but Joshua and Caleb had exactly this mindset. God will go before us and he will help us fight the battles and we'll win. So verse 28, where shall we go up? Our brethren have discouraged our hearts, saying, the people is great and taller than we. Cities are great and walled up to heaven, and moreover, we have seen the sons of the Anakims there. Then I said to you, Moses says, and when you say that, I say, dread not, neither be afraid of them. Yahweh your God that goes before you, he shall fight for you according to all that he did for you in Egypt before your eyes. So we should just think back on God's track record of what he's done for other people and our own lives, and we'll have much more faith to trust him to go before us in the future. And in the wilderness, verse 31, where you have seen how that Yahweh your God bear you, as a man does bear his son, in all the way that you went until you came to this place. Yet in this thing you did not believe Yahweh your God, who went in the way before you to search you out a place to pitch your tents in fire by night, to show you by what way you should go, and in the cloud by night. So you can kind of understand why God was so angry and Moses was so disappointed with the people, because they saw everything God did for them all the time in the wilderness. Every day he found them a place to rest and help them, provide them with food, faithful day by day. But yet when they had to go and take the land and conquer it, all of a sudden, because of some giants, they just lost all faith. And we should know we can be the same, and try and really learn the lessons not to be like that. Um, so here's the first lesson for us then. I'm just excuse for the running around there. Um, lesson one for us, we can rest assured Jesus has already gone before to prepare a place for us in the kingdom. Isn't that just a wonderful thought that we have? Nothing that Jesus asks us to do in our walk in the truth, some sacrifices we are sometimes called to make, fail in paleness in comparison to what Jesus done for us and the life he led, and the way he has now opened for us to have life eternal via resurrection, and then to be in the kingdom. So just like Moses, Jesus has gone before to prepare a place for us. But maybe here's the more important lesson. every Sunday or Wednesday when we go to a Bible class or we attend a meeting or wherever situation we found ourselves where we gather together with faithful people, we should be a bit more, I think, deliberately aware of it, that God is in the dwelling in the amongst us there, and we focus all the time. We have an opportunity to focus better on Jesus, who is our true tabernacle. That's why the meetings is so important. And in Hebrews, Paul says we should not forsake the coming together of each other, because we should see ourselves in a spiritual fashion more like those Israelites, that when they camped, they now had the opportunity to look inwards on the tabernacle and realize God is dwelling amongst them. And then that will build our faith, that if we go out after Sunday into the world in the week, we are almost like the Israelites in this wilderness, packing up camp, and we trust with faith that God is going and Jesus going before us in the week ahead to help us with any battles we might encounter. There's this lovely saying I once saw, will forever remain with me. It's just a picture of a little polar bear cub, small and very cute. And then the quote on the paper said, God, please help me to remember nothing is going to happen today that you and I can't handle together. So I just love that little placard. I've got it somewhere in my home. Right. Then lesson number 3. Every weekday, we go about our lives with a mindset that we started off in the morning fully aware that God has gone ahead, and we need to trust his way so that our battles will be won. Jesus is that mercy seat of the ark, and in him and with him, leading us as the true shepherd, we will follow wherever he goes, and it will always be to a place of victory in the final end of everything. Jesus will never ever lead us to any place that is too hard for us to handle, definitely not lead us into temptation. And it's wonderful to, if you can go through your day with that more on your mind more often, and try and make things help you to remember that. We often get so caught up in the physical things of the world that we just forget about God, actually, I must say, to my own shame sometimes. Okay, so yeah, just 2 verses to show us this kind of idea. Even hereunto we are called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that we should follow his steps. If Israel just went where Moses walked without complaining, because of faith, how much different their story wouldn't turn out. But they were forever arguing with him and complaining and protesting, and a stiff-necked people. Revelation 14 verse 1 tells us, I looked, and lo, a lamb upon Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having the Father's name written on in their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven, and as of many waters, and as the voice of great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. They sung, as it were, a new song before the throne and before the 4 beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. It's interesting to maybe notice that people who are confident and know where they're going, and realizing that they can't really get into serious trouble because of who they're following, they got a song in their hearts, and they are a bit more upbeat about things and not so negative about everything. So, that's how Jesus must find us when he returns. And in verse 4, these are they which were not defiled with women. They are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb wheresoever he goes. They were redeemed from men, being the first fruits. So, ending off then, here's the spiritual mindset hack that I'm going to apply for 2025 as we go ahead with this new year. Every morning I want to start my day with some deliberate activity that will get me into this Yahweh is going before me state of mind. Now, you might say, oh, well, that's kind of no-brainer. We do our readings every morning. That is fine. If you're going to do that, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to add something to it. I want to do a reading or the readings, and then I want to every morning put my Bible away in front of me. This deliberate physical act of saying, this is God and His Word, I'm putting it in front, it's going before me. The first thing I did was do my readings, and I physically can do something with my Bible to remind me God is going up, like Moses said, rise up, Yahweh, and destroy the enemies and go and find a place of rest for me. So I'll put it in front of me, slightly elevated. I might think of other interesting things as the year goes along. Who knows? Okay, and then every night at the end of the day, do something deliberate, an activity that will get me into Yahweh has returned to camp around for my protection state of mind. It might be definitely a prayer. And then it struck me last year how this is happening now in the world, that people do not have the Bible next to their bedside anymore when they go to sleep. They've got their phones there. And even though I do most of my studies on eSword on the computer, I still have my other Bible and I do some markings in it. But this year, there's not going to go by a single night without that Bible being right next to me. So, it's this whole idea, and I want to end off with this, that we live more in the secure knowledge, but even a mental conviction that God is ever present and active in our lives. So, brethren, that's what I want to leave with you. Thanks for the privilege of starting the year off for the Men of Faith group, which has really become very dear to my heart. Thanks.